today we are going to continue with 7.3.7.5. We're going to be using percent proportions and equations and just get more practice on solving problems using these. So just to review from yesterday, percent proportion, we take the part of something over the whole and set that equal to the percent over 100. So another example here, it says what number is 20% of 5? Okay, so we're trying to figure out, we know that we have 20%, so we're going to set that equal to 20 over 100. We're trying to figure out what number, that's going to be our part, is 20% of 5. We know 5 is our whole because we're taking 20% of that to find the part. From there, we cross multiply. 5 times 20 is 100, and x times 100 is 100x. Divide both by 100, and we get x equals 1. Okay, the other thing we learned was percent equation. That was part equals percent times whole. The biggest thing with this one is the percent goes in as a decimal. Then when you get your answer, it'll be in a decimal, so you have to convert it back to a percent. So the third one here, it says 15 is 25% of what number? So we know the percent is 25%. To write that as a decimal then, we move that decimal over 2 spots, and we get 0.25. So that's our percent. Our whole number is unknown. That's going to be our x, because we're trying to find 15 is the part of what number? 15 is 25% of what number? Then from there, divide both sides by 0.25. When you take 15 divided by 0.25, you get 60. So 15 is 25% of 60. Okay, so this one says the population of a city this year is 102% of last year's population, which was 125,000 people. What is this year's population? Well, the first thing I see is that 102%. So I'm going to put 102 over 100. I know that that's my percent, and it's always over 100. Then I see that last year's population was 125,000. I'm going to put last year's population as my whole and figure out then what part of that is this year's population. So I take 125,000 times 102, and I get a really big number. 12,750,000 equals, then we cross multiply 100 times x. We divide both of these by 100. And we get x equals 127,500 people. So last year there was 125,000. This year was 102% of that. So it's going to be a little bit more than the whole thing. So a little bit more than 125,000. So our answer makes sense. Next one, a field goal kicker makes 84% of the field goals he attempts. He has made 42 field goals this season. How many has he attempted? Well, again, I see that 84%. I'm going to put that over 100. 84 over 100. Then I see that he's attempted, he has made 42 field goals. We're trying to figure out how many he has attempted. So the attempted is that total number. He's attempted how many? That's going to be our x. We're searching for our whole number, and we know he's made 42. That's part of the whole. From there, we cross multiply. 42 times 100 is 4,200. 84 times x is 84x. Divide both sides by 84. From there, we get x equals 50. So this means that he has attempted 50 He's attempted 50, and he made 42 of them. A recent Boston Mayor's Cup race hosted, I'm sure it's supposed to say, the largest number of finishers in the history of the event with 825 finishers. 290 of the finishers were from the youth division. What percent of the finishers were from the youth division? Round your answer to the nearest 10. So I'm finding percent. That's going to be my x, and we put percent over 100. I know that there were 825 finishers. That is the total amount. That's going to be our whole. 825. And then we're trying to figure out what percent. So we know 290 were from the youth division, so that's going to be my part. 290 out of 825 were in the youth division. We need to figure out what percent that is. So I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to take 290 times 100, and I get 29,000. I then take 825 times x. Divide both sides by 825, and I get x equals, in my calculator it says 35.15151515, but it says round to the nearest 10. So I'm going to write that as 35 point, and it says 15, so I'm going to round that to 2. 35.2% were in the youth division. All right, some more practice problems. 12 is what percent of 96? I want you to pause this, and I want you to try all 3 of these on your paper. All right, 12 is what percent of 96? 12 is my part, so I can either use percent equation or percent proportion. I'm going to use the equation for this one. So I have part equals percent times whole. Well, I know 12 is my part equals, we need to find percent, so I'm going to write that as x, and my whole is 96. I then divide both sides by 96, and I get 0.125. But then I have to change that to a percent. I bump the decimal to the right, and I get 12.5%. Okay, what is 35% of 65? We don't know the part. We do know it's 35%, but if I'm doing percent equation, I have to put that in as a decimal. 35%, we move the decimal to the left 2 times, and we get 0.35, and our whole number is 65. And from there I solve. I take 0.35 times 65, and I get x equals 22.75. My last one, 241 is 10% of what number? 241 is my part. And I'll do percent proportion. So part over whole, we don't know our whole, that's going to be our number, equals 10% over 100. Percent over 100. Then we cross multiply. X times 10 is 10x. 241 times 100 is 24,100. Divide both by 10. And you get x equals 2,410. So if you solve these either using percent equation or percent proportion, you should have gotten the same answer using both methods. Okay, Bria wants to buy a bird bath that costs $79. If there's a 7% tax on it, what is the total cost that she will pay? This chart up here is going to be incredibly helpful. What you see in one shape, so let's say we plug something in for one triangle. We plug it in for one triangle, we plug it in for both. Same goes with the rectangle. The rectangle stands for the original, the triangle is the change, circle is our ratio value, and then the square is our new value. So she wants to buy a bird bath that costs $79. if there's a 7% tax on it, what is the total cost that she will pay? So right away I see 7%. I can plug that in as 7 over 100. That's my percent. Then I see that the bird bath costs $79. That's the original amount. That's the cost that she sees. Expensive bird bath. Wow. Okay. Now we have triangles left over. We have our square. First thing we need to do is solve for this triangle. Because if we solve for that triangle, we can plug it in here. So instead of writing that as my x, I'm going to actually write that as a question mark. Because we're trying to find the total cost. That's going to be our x value. So now I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to take 100 times the question mark. So I get 100 question mark equals, and then I take 79 times 7. And I get 553. I then divide both sides by 100. And I get the question mark equals 5.53. So now I've solved for the question mark and I can plug it in. So I'm going to write 5.53. If I put that in one triangle, I'm going to put it in the other triangle. And then here's where we have to think. If it originally cost $79 and there's a $5.53 tax, are we going to add these numbers or are we going to subtract? The correct answer would be to add, because you have to take the original and add on the tax. So when you have 5.53, you add $79, and you get $84.53. That's going to be the total cost for the bird bath and for tax. Okay, this one says Chan wants to buy a cell phone that costs $180. If the 7% sales tax is added, what is the total cost? I want you to pause it and try this one on your own. It's just like the one we just did. Okay, so we know that the cost is $180. That's going to be our original cost. I'm going to plug that in for both rectangles. Then I see that there's a 7% sales tax, so I'm going to put 7 over 100. I need to first solve for my triangles. Those are going to be my question marks. Then I'm going to solve for my square, my total value. Okay, I take 100 times the question mark, which is 100 question mark, equals 180 times 7, which is 1,260. Divide both by 100, and I get question mark equals 12.6. So now that I have that number, I can plug it in for both of my triangles. So I get 12.6, 12.6. Now, just like the last problem, we add the tax onto the original. So I take 180 plus 12.6, and my total amount for the phone is $192.60. Okay, Mr. Wilkins purchased a DVD player for $97.19, including tax. The DVD player had a sticker price of $89.99. About what percent did he pay? So I'm looking for percent, so I'm going to write X over 100 right away. And then I see that it was $97.19, including tax. So that number is actually going to be my new $97.19, because that's my total amount. Then the original was $89.99. So now I have to figure out my triangles, which will be my question marks, and my X value. So instead of cross multiplying first, because we have two unknowns on the top, I'm actually going to solve for the triangle down here. I'm going to take 97.19 and subtract 89.99. And from there, I get 7.2. So my triangle is 7.2. Because 89.99 plus 7.2 gives us $97.19. Now that I just have my x to solve for, I'm going to cross multiply. So 89.99 times x is 89.99x, and then 7.2 times 100 gives us 720. From there, I divide both sides by 89.99. And I get 8. So the correct answer is C, 8%. Okay, this is an example of an MCA problem. Sue has 350 newspapers to deliver. She has 28 newspapers still left to deliver. What percent does she still have left to deliver? So I'm going to use a percent proportion. I know the total is 350. I know I'm trying to find percent, so that's my x over 100. And then 28 is my part. She still has 28 left. So now I'm going to cross multiply. 350 times x is 350x. 28 times 100 is 2,800. Now I divide both sides by 350. And I get 8. So the correct answer is C, 8%. All right, the homework is up on the board. This is going to be due